lighters on top of the file cabinet in the office.
Sure. Don't work. You need me to open it up. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا اللهم زدنا علما إنك أنت عليم حكيم اللهم اجعل هذه المحاضرة حجة لنا لا حجة علينا يا رب العالمين أما بعد. This is our fifth class inshallah ta'ala for Kitab Janaa'iz, the book of funerals. This chapter, like many other chapters in a religion, they're quite extensive. However, the name of this book that we're using is called Zaad Al-Mustaqni, which means that it's summarized. So there are a lot of things that are not covered, but we try to cover things that are relevant, things that may be interesting, that may pertain to us here. But there are some things that, if anyone is following this class or other classes, you may have in your books like added information about certain subject matter. It could be because the teacher or the one that's teaching the class didn't believe that piece was particularly relevant, or it may not be something that's feasible where we live. It may not be an issue that we can implement where we live in our society, inshallah. So where we stopped off at فصل في حمل الميت ودفنه. This issue here, we're going to discuss carrying the deceased. So we already got over the process of washing the body, praying over the body, etc. Now we're going to talk about carrying the deceased and burying them. قال المصنف رحمه الله, the author, he said, rahimahullah ta'ala, يُسَنُّ تَرْبِيعُ فِي حَمْلِهِ وَيُبَاحُ بَيْنَ الْعَمُودَيْنِ. That's translated there?
About carrying the deceased?
Yeah, what does it say?
It is sooner for 4 people to carry the deceased.
Mm-hmm.
It is permissible for 2 people to carry him. It is sunnah to...
Stop right there. That's where we stopped at. It says, يُسَنُّ تَرْبِيعُ فِي حَمْلِهِ وَيُبَاحُ بَيْنَ الْعَمُودَيْنِ. Did he give an explanation for that?
I believe it did.
Go ahead.
Keep going.
I just want to hear the explanation for that part right there.
Alright, this is a blessing of Allah upon mankind, as he did not render our corpses like the carcass of an animal, which is left on the face of the earth to decay. Instead, we are well preserved. That part?
I'm talking about the part that, is there a part that explains that? يُسَنُّ تَرْبِيُّ فِي حَمْلِهِ. That is sunnah, that 4 people or 4 corners of the Bible. I'll explain that. I just want to know if there's an explanation for that in the translation that you have.
Oh yeah, I believe it's on this page right here.
What does it say?
It is sunnah for 4 people to carry the deceased. It is permissible for 2 people to carry him. Each of the 4 men should carry the corner poles. 2 men can do it. One places both corner poles on both sides of his shoulders, while the other does the same on the opposite end. It is mustahab that the people carrying the deceased are rotated So that
Sense.
one and all gets the chance and reward of this act.
Good. That's it?
We got more.
Go ahead.
The men should also switch between corner poles. That is, if he is carrying the right poles at the front, he should switch over to the left. When that is done, he moves to the rear poles, switching between the two. This is to be done only if it is convenient to do so.
Ahsant. MashaAllah. That's good. So here we're going to talk about that first part. يُسَنُّ التَّرْبِيعُ فِي حَمْلِهِ وَيُبَاحُ بَيْنَ الْعَمُودَيْنِ. Here, shit, you might gotta slide that over, man. I'm not gonna be able to breathe. Nah, you good. Yeah, that's good. Jazakallah khair. Yusannu tarbiyah. So here, when they talk about the body, right? It's sunnah to have the body ala na'at, like on a sarir or a bed or some type of, when they say sarir here, something you put the body on, right? They say that a tarbiyah is talking about the four corners, meaning the right, the left, the right foot, the left foot. Those are the four corners, right? So here, it's sunnah for there to be people to carry on both sides, meaning the leg area and the two shoulder area, because a person is going to be like this, all right? Amudain is talking about the things that they're on, like the two arms, if you will. So like you're carrying like this on both sides. The way that the scholars explain switching sides, what's the first preferable side to carry the body on? Let's assume the body is laying here, the head here, the right shoulder, the left shoulder, the right foot, and the left foot. All right, what is the sunnah position? Like, what should be the first part that the person carries the body on?
Right side.
The right side or the left side of the body? Which side?
I would say the right side.
So the body is going to be on the right side. Good. So essentially, your right shoulder should be carrying the first corner, and then the person in the back, likewise, and then the person on the other side is going to be his left shoulder, and then the back, likewise. So they say the way they interchange them is that when a person is carrying on the right shoulder, then he's going to go to the back and carry on the right shoulder. Then he's going to switch to the other side and carry on the right shoulder. And he's going to go up to the front. To the left shoulder, and he's going to go up to the front, carry on the left shoulder, if it's possible. You'll see this if you go to the land of the Muslims. You'll see that if you follow a janazah, you'll find that the men are rotating. While they're carrying the body, they're all rotating. Carrying, each person is getting a couple steps, holding it this way in the back, a couple steps, and is moving. So if you ever see something like that, that is what they're doing. They're following that particular aspect of the sunnah. طيب. Then he says, rahimahullah, وَيُسَنُّ إِسْرَاءُ بِهَا. And it is sunnah to move quickly with the body. Now here, when they say quickly, they're not talking about running. Yani walking fast, mu'tad. Mu'tad, it means walking at a quick pace, but you're not running. Walking at a quick pace, but you are not running. And Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, أَسْرِعُوا بِالْجَنَازَةِ فَإِن تَكُوا صَالِحَةً فَخَيْرٌ تُقَدِّمُونَهَا إِلَيْهِ وَإِن تَكُوا سِوَى ذَلِكَ فَشَرٌ تَدْعُونَهُ عَنْ رِقَابِكُمْ مُتَّفِقٌ عَلَيْهِ. And Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he said in this authentic hadith, he says, أَسْرِعُوا بِالْجَنَازَةِ, يعني be quick in burying the deceased. Quick in taking them and putting them in the ground. So the next fa here is the reason why. فَإِن تَكُوا صَالِحَةً, if that person is upright and righteous, then quickly put them in the ground so that they can receive their reward. وَإِن تَكُوا سِوَى ذَلِكَ, and if they are not righteous, if they are people that are not in good favor, if you will, then quickly get them from your necks. Meaning, hurry up and get them away from your necks and put them in the ground. Is that clear? Yes. So then the Shaykh rahimahullah, he says, وَكُونُ الْمَشَاتِ أَمَامَهَا وَالرِّقَابِ خَلْفَهَا. Now, let's assume that there's a janazah. We're following a janazah. if there are people that are walking, the sunnah is that the people that are walking are in front of the janazah, meaning they're in the front walking. And the people that are behind are generally driving behind, they're riding on something. Obviously, that's not the case in our society, but this is if you are in that environment where to do that is conducive. It says, وَيُكْرَهُ جَلُوسُ تَابِيهَا حَتَّى تُلْدَعَ. If you're at the burial, it is hated for anyone to sit down at the burial until the body is put in the ground. Some of the ulama, they make exception. They say that if a person is coming from a long distance, walking from a long distance, and perhaps they want to sit down out of because they're tired, etc., then that's something that is different. But it's hated, meaning it's not haram, but it's just hated. Not just hated, because it means it's hated to Allah, but it's hated, meaning that if you were to sit down, you won't be punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for doing it. وَيُسَجَّى قَبْرُ إِمْرَأَةٍ فَقَطْ. And as it relates to a woman, we spoke about this before, a woman, she's supposed to be covered. So when you're carrying the woman, she should be covered. طيب. When the body is placed in the ground, there are two ways to put a body in the ground. Obviously, I don't know how the local laws legislated, because that is something you can't just do what you want. They have regulations and statutes with regards to putting bodies in the ground. But essentially, for a Muslim, Muslims are not buried in caskets. The body is taken out of the casket and placed in the ground. Now, there are two places in which the body is placed. Al-Lahad or Al-Shaq. Al-Lahad is a hole or a space carved out in the side of the ground. So let's say, for example, the hole is dug. Inside the hole, the best place, as he says, Al-Lahdu afdalu min al-Shaq. That al-lahad is, for example, if you dig out the side of the wall and you place the body in there. Now, the sunnah is that you place the body on the right side. You place the body on the right side inside of the lahad, on the side. And the ulama mentioned that it is wajib that the body is facing the qibla. It is wajib that the body is facing the qibla. طيب. This is if you're able to put the body on the side like that. If you're not able to do that, this is called the lahad. If you're not able to do that, then a shaq is also permissible. Here, what do you do? The lahad or the shaq?
The shaq.
Alright, so explain that. So here, everybody here has to do it that way? Is that the law or?
Well, yeah, like the cemeteries, they don't do the like, except the one out Chester. They put them in the side. The ones right here.
They put them on the side, on their backs, or on the right side?
On the right side, like they'll dig the hole, they'll put them on the right side, they'll stick a board behind it to keep them straight.
So even when you stick the wood, so if you look through the books of the Salaf, they don't recommend using wood. They recommend using brick. But obviously, it's hated to use wood. At any event, it says, Al-Lahdu afdalu min al-Shaq. Al-Shaq is, let's say, for example, we dig a hole 6 feet deep in the ground. In the middle of the ground, there's going to be another hole dug in there. So it's going to be a hole inside of a hole. Allah Mustaqni. The hole inside of the hole is also dug in, and the body is placed inside there, and then it's covered up. Here they use wood, right? But in the past they said they use something called lebna. Lebna is kind of like bricks or something else that will cover it, but it will be spacious. It shouldn't be tight, it should be spacious. Just going over this reminded me of some of the Salaf. They would go to the cemeteries and just sit in the cemetery in a grave. They will find a shallow grave and just sit there and think about their lives. This is the act of some of the scholars of the past. SubhanAllah. It's something to think about. when the body is placed in there, in the shaq, all right, then there's a covering placed over it, and then the dirt is put on top. When the body is placed in the ground, the one that is placing the body in the ground, وَيَقُولُ مُدْخِلُهُ, the one that is putting the body in the ground, they say Bismillah wa ala millati Rasulillah. They say Bismillah in the name of Allah upon a religion, in the name of Allah and upon a religion of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَيَدْعُوا فِي لَحْدِهِ عَلَى شَقِّهِ الْأَيْمَنِ, and that they are put into the grave on their right sides. مُسْتَقْبِلَ الْقِبْلَةِ, facing the Qibla. وَيُرْفَعُ الْقَبْرُ عَنِ الْأَرْضِ قَدْرَ شِبْرٍ, that once the dirt is put back on top, they say it should be qadr shibra. Shibra, some of the ulama go like this, between the thumb and the finger. So the dirt should be that, once the dirt is covered, it should be that high, meaning above the ground. It should be that high above the ground. The next issue is dealing with putting things on top of the grave. So they say, وَيُكْرَهُ تَجْسِيسُهُ. Tajsisuhu, as some of the scholars explain, is making it, lighting up the grave. You may go to some burials, some places, you'll find lights, some bright lights around. This is something that is hated, or to build anything over it, any type of writing, sitting on it, leaning on the grave, etc. These are things that are hated. If you look through some of the books of the earlier scholars, they also mention the issue of even when you go into the grave, you should even take your shoes off. This is a position that some of the Salaf, not saying that you must do it, I'm saying this is some of them would say they would even take their shoes off. Unfortunately now, when you go to some cemeteries, you find people walking on graves and they're not realizing or making it an important issue. We should not step on graves. We should not walk on graves. This is not something we should do. وَيَحْرَمُ فِيهِ دَفْنُ إِثْنَيْنِ فَأَكْثَرُ إِلَّا لِلضُّرُورَةِ, that it is haram to bury two people in the same grave. It is haram to bury two people in the same grave. It says, دَفْنُ إِثْنَيْنِ فَأَكْثَرُ مَعٍ أَوْ وَاحِدًا بَعْدَ آخَرٍ قَبْلَ يَلِي السَّابِقِ, or one in front of the other. Let's say, for example, they bury two people in it right next to each other in the same grave. This is not permissible. إِلَّا لِلضُّرُورَةِ, unless it's out of necessity. Unless it's out of necessity. This is something that is haram in Islam. It says, وَيُجْعَلُ بَيْنَ كُلِّ اثْنَيْنِ حَاجِزًا مِنْ طَرَابٍ. It says, if you are going to do that out of necessity, then between the two people, put between them a hajiz, some type of dirt in between the two if you're forced to do so. But essentially, it is haram to bury more than one person in the same grave. وَلَا تُقْرَوْا. Now here's an issue that has some difference of opinion from some of the ulama about Islam. And this issue here, it says, وَلَا تُقْرَهُ الْقِرَاءَةُ عَلَى الْقَبْرِ. Some of them say that it is not, according to the metin here, it is not hated to recite over the deceased. It is not, some hold the position that it is not hated to recite over the deceased. We're going to read a little bit about that, inshallah. It says, لِمَا رَوَى عَنَسْ مَرْفُوعًا قَالَ مَنْ دَخَلَ الْمَقَابِرِ فَقَرَأَ عَلَيْهَا يَاسِينَ خُفِفَ عَنْهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ وَكَانَ لَهُ بِعَدَدِهِمْ حَسَنَاتٍ. طيب. So, this hadith, according to Imam Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah ta'ala, he holds this hadith to be da'if. In fact, he even says it's fabricated, it's made up. Yet, in some cases, you find many of the Salaf may implement this hadith. Wazi? Shaykh al-Albani holds it to be da'if. It doesn't mean that every scholar of hadith holds the same position, or every scholar holds the same position. However, Shaykh al-Albani, rahimahullah, as an author, is a strong scholar of hadith. So as some of the early men would mention, you'll be hard pressed to find any scholar of hadith not having his books of hadith in their repertoire. They have them. But having said that, you still understand when it comes to issues like this, unless there is something called the ijma on the issue, then there is no consensus. Unless you personally studied the issue and came to that conclusion on your own, which most of us are not equipped to do that. So 9 times out of 10, you will follow a scholar in this issue that you trust. You will follow a scholar in this issue that you trust. So he says, لا تكره القراءة على القبر. So they say that it is not hated to recite the Quran over the grave. Now, as we mentioned this hadith, it says, whoever enters into the graves and recites Surah Yasin, then this will be a benefit for the deceased until that day, and they will get multiplied reward based on it. This hadith, they say, Sahha an Ibn Umar. They say this hadith was authentic on Ibn Umar, who was a companion. وَأَنَّهُ أَوْصَى إِذَا دُفِنَ أَن يُقْرَأَ عِنْدَهُ بِفَاتِحَةِ الْبَقَرَةِ. And they said that they shall also recite the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah and the end of Khatimah, and the end of Surah Al-Baqarah. Right. This is one position. Right. And the reason why, so you might say, well, why are you mentioning this? Because it's very likely that you will go to a grave and you may see Muslims doing this. And the first thing that we're quick to do is say, these people are what? Innovators. Right. So here it says that you can find قالوا في المبدع. You can find this in the book called Al-Mubdi'. وكان أحمد ينكر ذلك. Imam Ahmed would refute that. He would say, no, this is not correct. Even though there were some from the scholars of the past that held what? That it was okay. Imam Ahmed rahimahullah said that it is not okay. But he has two positions on the issue. So sometimes you'll also find scholars of the Salaf, scholars of the past, holding multiple positions on the same issue. Multiple positions on what? On the same issue. So the author of Zaad Al-Mustaqni, which is Imam Abu Musa Al-Hajjawi, he held the position that it is okay. He held the position that is what? That is okay. Whereas Imam Ahmed, mind you, this is the fiqh of Imam Ahmed. Inside of the fiqh of Imam Ahmed, there are multiple positions on the same issue. There are multiple positions on the same issue. In this book, Zaad al-Mustaqni, they hold the position that it is what? That it is okay to what? Recite. Whereas another position of Imam Ahmed says that it is what? Not permissible. Now we're going to hear some kalam of Shaykh al-Islam and others. It says, so he has one position, وَيُنْكَرْ ذَلِكَ وَعَنْهُ يُقْرَى. There's another position of Imam Ahmed that it is hated. If you study the usul, the fundamental usul of Imam Ahmed, sometimes when he says something is hated, he really means that it is haram. Right? So it takes some research. And he says, وِفَاقًا لِأَبِي حَنِيفَةَ. And Imam Abi Hanifa also said it was hated. Imam Malik said the same thing. وَعَامَةَ السَّلَفِ. And a general group of the Salaf also held the same thing. And then there's another narration of Imam Ahmed, وَعَنْهُ بِدْعَةً. وَعَنْهُ ish bid'ah. And another position of Imam Ahmed is that it is bid'ah. That it is what? Bid'ah. Innovation. And then he says, وفاقا the Imam al-Shafi'i. Imam al-Shafi'i held the position that it was bid'ah. So right now, look at what we have here. We have one position of Imam Ahmed that it is okay. We have another position that it is hated, kat yakun haram, maybe. Then we have another position that it is bid'ah. Along with Imam al-Shafi'i also holds that position. وقال الشيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية نقل الجماعة كراهته. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, he said the majority of the scholars say that it is hated. The majority of the scholars say that it is hated. Or called a jamhur as-salaf. And this is a call, the statement of the majority of the salaf. وَعَلَيْهِ قُدَمَاء الْأَصْحَابِ. And the older companions, meaning the companions of Imam Ahmed, also holds the same position. So what do we take from that? What's the natija? The natija is this. When it comes to issues of innovation, you have to be careful. Because one scholar may hold the position that something is a bid'ah, it doesn't mean that it's a consensus, meaning ijma, that is a bid'ah. Well, you might have one scholar that holds something to be a bid'ah, and you follow that position. If you see someone falling into, this person's an innovator because he fell into it, that's a whole nother subject, that's a whole nother issue. But the point of me mentioning this is so that we can pump the brakes. Sometimes we become excessive in saying this is an innovation, that's an innovation, when you don't know. You have scholars, they died over 1,000 years ago discussing this very issue, or reciting over the graves, right? Some held that it was a bid'ah. Majority of the salaf said that it was hated. Some hold it to be impermissible. There's one position that said it is okay. So imagine if we were able to reach the point in our Islam where we can respect the opinions of the Salaf, imagine how Islam will look where we live today. Huh? If people actually understood this stuff, you say, you know what? I'm going to pump the brakes because the Salaf pumped the brakes. And another narration, if we even look through a book like Shah al-Kabir and others, the same issue, it says, قال قراءة عند القبر بدعة. Right? It says, روي ذلك عن هشيم قال أبو بكر نقل ذلك عن أحمد جماعة ثم رجع رجوعا. And then Imam Ahmed held that it was a bid'ah. Then it says, وَرَجَعَ رُجُوعًا. Then he took that position back. أَبَانَ بِهِ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ. He became clear, maybe it's not. فَرَوَى جَمَاعَةً أَنَّ أَحْمَدْ نَهَا ضَرِيرًا يَقْرَأُ عِنْدَ الْقَبْرِ. And then he would tell the people, don't read in the qabr. He said, وَقَالَ لَهُ. And he said to him, قِرَاءَةُ عِنْدَ الْقَبْرِ بِدْعَةٌ. He said that reading in the qabr is a bid'ah. قَالَ لَهُ مُحَمَّدْ بْنُ قُدَّامَ الْجَوْهَرِي يَا أَبَا عَبْدِ اللَّهِ ما تقول في مبشر الحلبي قال ثقة. So now he's talking about the person who addressed the issue. He says, وإذا دفن يقرأ عنده بفاتحة البقرة وخاتمتها وقال سمعت ابن عمر يوصي به. So then they're talking about if a person is buried and they read the beginning of Baqarah and then they read the end of Baqarah. He says, وقال سمعت ابن عمر يوصي بذلك. Ibn Umar would advise with it. He says, فَقَالَ أَحْمَدْ بْنُ حَنْبَلٍ فَارْجَعْ فَقُولَ الرَّجُلُ يَقْرَأ. Then he said that, then go back and tell the brother to read. Shoot the cave. Imam Ahmed said in the beginning, it's a bid'ah. He said, but Ibn Umar, he used to do. Tell him to read that. Shoot, look at the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People that were better than him, the companion, he did it. And then he said, فرجع فقل للرجل يقرأ. قال خلال حدثنا أبي علي الحسن ابن هيثم البزار شيخنا الثقة المأمون قال رأيت أحمد بن حنبل يصلي خلف الضرير يقرأ على قبور. This is the shahid. The benefit here is, he said, I saw Imam Ahmed. Now remember, Imam Ahmed held the position that is what? Bid'ah. So if we go through the school of Imam Ahmed, we found what? Multiple positions. The first one, in this book here, it's okay to read in the graves. The second one is hated. The third one, bid'ah. So here we find the narrations from the Salaf where Imam Ahmed said it was a bid'ah. Someone came to him and said, such an Ibn Umar from the companions, he used to do it. He said, go back and tell him to read that. The Salaf, they weren't afraid to take back positions when they felt some doubt about it. Well, if the companion did it, then I'm going to fall back. They didn't have any problems with that. And then this is the shahid. The last benefit here, he says, Ra'aytu Ahmed ibn Hanbal yusalli. He said, I saw Imam Ahmed praying behind a person that used to recite over the graves. So also shows that not only did he take the position back, but he also saw it permissible to pray behind them, etc. that was just one benefit with regards to that. Now, the majority of the scholars hold that it is what? No, not haram. That is hated. It's something that you shouldn't do. That's the majority of the salaf. Hold the position that it's something that you shouldn't do. The only purpose is that we're mentioning this is so that if we see people doing this, we don't be quick to say, oh, those people are ahlul bidah. Well, that's the only benefit. That's the shahid. That's the zubda kalam. That's the benefit that I want brothers and sisters to take, is that if you see somebody doing it, don't be quick to say these people are upon innovation. Is that it's something that has been made easy, fall off the tongues of brothers and sisters. Allah Musta'an. طيب. وأي قربة فعلها وجعل ثوابها للميت مسلم أو حي نفعه ذلك. The next thing is, they mention that any type of worship that a person do, you can make your intention for that worship to go to the deceased Muslim, whether a person is living or a person is deceased. Now, there's no difference of opinion with regards to making hajj for a deceased Muslim or a person that's living, or fasting for a person that may have passed away, etc. Or making istighfar, or making dua for them, etc. However, anything outside of that, there may be some differences of opinion. With regards to making hajj and fasting for them, etc., there are narrations that support that. Outside of that, it's a bit sketchy. Some of the ulama differ in it. However, with regards to the school of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, anything that you do that is good, you can make your intention to go to a deceased Muslim. This is according to the school of Imam Ahmad. طيب. ويسن أن يصنع لأهل الميت طعام يبعث إليه به إليهم. طيب. When a person passes away, it is sunnah for people to prepare food for them. Now, say for example, a brother passes away, at least for the 3 days, it is sunnah to bring food, dinner to their house. Not for the purpose of gathering at their house, right? But for the purpose for their family to have food because they're dealing with their trial. So it is sunnah to bring food to them. وَيُكْرَهُ لَهُمْ فِعْلَهُ لِلنَّاسِ. And it is also hated for them, meaning the family, to fix food for other people. Sometimes a person passes away and that family of the deceased is cooking food for everybody else. This is not what Islam, this is hated in the religion of Al-Islam. It's not something that should be done. Rather, those family members, they are the ones that food should be served to them. Food should be served to them. Oh yeah, what time is it? You know, I'm going to finish this. Is it okay if we just finish out Janaa'iz? Nobody got to go? So yeah, this is the last part here. This is the issue here. The next one is فَصْلٌ فِي زِيَارَةِ الْقُبُورِ. Visiting the graves. Visiting the graves. يُسَنُّ or تُسَنُّ زِيَارَةُ الْقُبُورِ إِلَّا لِلنِّسَاءِ. That it is sunnah to visit the graves except for the women. This is a position of Imam Ahmad. It is sunnah to visit the graves except for the women. This is one position. It says, هَلْ تُقْرَوْ لِلنِّسَاءِ عَلَى الرِّوَايَتَيْنِ. Is it hated for women to visit the graves? It's two positions. Firstly, the ulama, when they talk about these issues, the first thing they mention is what there's no difference of opinion in. So they say, لَا نَعْلَمُ خِلَافًا بَيْنَ أَهْلِ الْعِلْمِ فِي الْإِسْتِحْبَابِ زِيَادَةَ الرِّجَالِ الْقُبُورِ. The first thing they mention is that we don't know of any difference of opinion that it is recommended for men to visit the graves. قال علي بن سعيد قلت لأحمد زيارة القبور أفضل أو تركها قال زيارتها وقد صح عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال It said that Ali ibn Sa'id, he said, قلت لأحمد, I said to Imam Ahmed, زيارة القبور أفضل أو تركها. He said, visiting the grave, is it better or should we leave it off? Imam Ahmed said, زيارتها. He said, rather visiting the grave. وقد صح عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, and then he mentioned the hadith of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, إنه قال, كنت نهيتكم عن زيارة القبور فزروها فإنها تذكر الموت. النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام, he said, I used to prohibit you from visiting the graves, but now visit the graves, for indeed it reminds you of death. It reminds you of death. فَإِنَّهَا تُذَكِّرُ الْآخِرَةِ, or it'll make you think about the next life. As it relates to women, then there are two positions. The first position, there are two positions. The first position is that it is hated, and the second position is that it is no problem, like it's recommended. So one position is that it is hated, and the next position is that it is recommended. لما روت عطية قالت نهينا عن زيارة القبور. عطية, she said, we were prevented from visiting the graves. ولم يعزم علينا متفق عليه. And it was not for us, and this hadith was reported by Bukhari and Muslim. لقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, there's a hadith of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, where he said, لعن الله الزوارات القبور. And Nabi عليه الصلاة والسلام, he said, the visitors, the زوارات القبور, يعني the women that visit the graves have been cursed, right? وقال الترمذي هذا حديث صحيح. Imam al-Tirmidhi said this hadith was sahih. And some of them say, وَهَذَا خَاصٌ فِي النِّسَاءِ, this is something that is specific from the women. Are we clear? Right. The next issue, they say, well, وَالنَّهْيُ مَنْسُوخ. They say that this hadith is abrogated. Some say that that hadith is abrogated. Do you know what abrogated means? What's abrogated? What does that mean? Cancel. Overwritten. Good. So we have some hadith that were narrated at one point in time, and then there's something else that comes in, removes that ruling. So some of the Salaf, they say that this hadith is mansukh, meaning it is abrogated. It's no longer relevant. The ruling is no longer valid. It says mansukh kana amman al-rijal wal nisa. They say this hadith is abrogated, and this is general for the men and the women. This is general for the men and the women, meaning the permissibility. وَيَحْتَمِلُ أَنَّهُ كَانَ خَاصًا لِلرِّجَالِ. And he also says the possibility that this hadith could only be specific for the men. It's possible. Meaning visiting the graves. طيب, الزوارات here, this here is siga mubalagha, which means this is a person that excessively visits the graves. And they say here it's referring to the women. Some of them say the women, they can visit the graves, just not excessively. And Allah knows best. And the next position is that it is permissible for the women to visit the graves, meaning that it is okay, la bats. That it is okay, la bats. And this is also due to the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, kuntu nahaytukum an ziyaratul qubur fazuruha. When the Prophet ﷺ said, I used to prevent you from, or prohibit you from visiting the graves, but now visit the graves. There are concerns, however, with women visiting the graves, and we'll talk about that briefly, or soon, inshallah. يقول إذا زارها أو مر بها, if a person visits the grave or passes by a grave, they should say, Assalamu alaikum. Give salams to the Muslims there. Dara qawmin mu'mineen, O house of the believers. Dara qawmin mu'mineen. Inna insha'Allah bikum lahikum. That indeed, with Allah's permission, we'll be meeting you there soon. Lahikum, we're going to catch up with you there. Yarhamillah al-mustaqdimina minkum wal-mustakhirin. May Allah have mercy on the ones that preceded us and the ones that are coming later. Nas'alullah lana wa lakum al-afiyah. And we ask Allah for us and for you protection and safety. Allahumma la tahrimna ajrahum. Oh Allah, don't prevent us. Don't make haram for us the reward that you gave the Muslims in the ground. And then we say, وَلَا تَفْتِينَا بَعْدَهُمْ. And don't make us a fitna after them. It's heavy. Don't bring a trial to us after them. Meaning, don't make whatever you gave them from good, let us get that good too. And whatever is something bad, and keep us away from that. These are the du'as that you make when you go to the grave. And then it says, وَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَلَهُمْ. And Allah forgive us and forgive them. Forgive us and forgive them. وَتُسَنُّ تَعْزِيَةُ الْمُصَابِ الْمَيِّتِ. And it is also sunnah to make ta'ziyah lil-mayyit, li-masab al-mayyit. So for example, if we know a Muslim has a family member that passed away, this is called a ta'ziyah, that we should visit that person and make dua for them. أَعْظَمَ اللَّهُ أَجْرَكَ. May Allah multiply your reward during this time of suffering. In English, this will be considered condolences. It's sunnah for a Muslim to give a ta'ziyah, to make this condolence. In the land of the Muslims, specifically Mecca and other places where the Muslims are, usually after like Salatul Maghrib, for example, the whole neighborhood will come out and make ta'ziyah to the deceased of a family member. The whole family will be out there and they'll all shake their hands and make dua for them. Or they'll do it at the grave, but you'll know because it'll be a red carpet somewhere in a field and it'll be lights around and it'll be like the whole neighborhood coming there for 3 days straight. It's like that every time somebody dies, a family member dies in the neighborhood. Sometimes the ta'ziyah is done at the burial. Remember, it's 3 days. So when they're putting the body in the ground, they'll do ta'ziyah there for the family. Then the next day after Maghrib, they'll do it for the family. The next day after that, they'll do it for the family. طيب. ويجوز البكاء على الميت. ويجوز البكاء على الميت. And it is permissible to cry over the deceased. Some people may believe that in Islam, it's not permissible to cry over the deceased. It is permissible. What's impermissible is the wailing, the screaming, the ripping the clothes off, pulling out the hair, scratching the face, etc. These are things that have been made impermissible in Islam. وَيَحْرَمُ النَّدْبُ. And they also say it is also haram to speak. You notice how when people have eulogies, he was this, and he was the best, and he was this. This is breaking that person's back. This is not something that is permissible in Islam. Majd al-Din Ibn Taymiyyah, he's the grandfather of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. He said that, La bats bil yasir. He said it's okay if it's a little bit, a small amount. This is the position of Majd al-Din, who was the grandfather of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. He said, La bats bil yasir. If it's a little bit, a small amount, it's okay. However, we don't want to be like the non-Muslims when they give a whole, this person was this, and all of his excellent traits and accolades. It's not something that we want to do. And it's also impermissible in niyaha. Niyaha is wailing and screaming and carrying on and ripping off the clothes. And we're going to take that back to the issue why women, for the most part, were not recommended, if you will, to go to the graves. It's because the fear of them falling into sin, ripping off their clothes, screaming, especially if it's a close loved one, not knowing how to react, passing out, etc., etc. These are things that will protect the sister. Perhaps, Allahu A'lam, maybe she will, after some time, get herself together. Perhaps she will visit them. Allah knows best. However, there are other books that talk about this issue of women visiting the graves in great detail. It's not a black and white issue. In any event, we're going to stop with that, and we close out with Kitab al-Janaa'iz. That's it. We're finished that book. Inshallah, if we can do it again, maybe we can come down to the facility there and have like a dummy or something there. We can go through everything again. Yes?
Question. if there is, what's the punishment for a person having a candlelight visual for the?
What's the punishment? So I said that they said it was hate. I don't know the punishment.
Oh, okay.
Not sure.
Okay, I'm just saying,
Is it specified, the punishment?
like,
Not that I know of.
for a person, like, I'll protect us all, but
I mean,
if there's a situation where me and my family don't know they have one, is there any punishment upon me?
inshallah, Allah. If you, what can you do? Your book is done.
Okay.
Unless you told them to do that, right? You can't control other people, then inshallah, khair, inshallah. No la bets.
That's a good question.
La taziru waziratan wizra ukhra. Meaning no person is going to bear the burden of someone else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that in the Quran. La taziru waziratan wizra ukhra. You're not going to bear it. If someone does something, now it's different because it's also if you did some evil and someone you passed away and someone followed you in that evil, then perhaps it's different. You might get a double punishment for that. You might be harmed. And this is why we have Muslim rappers, right? We have Muslim rappers in this town. You're talking about killing people and harming people and everything else. Well, what happens when you die and people still listening to your music? And they're driving around and they might feel motivated to do something mischievous over your music and you're in the ground. Famt? You understand the reality with that? You're a Muslim rapper. You say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. You talk about killing people. You talk about robbing people. You talk about oppressing people. You talk about oppressing women. You talk about whatever, getting high, drunk. Then you have some younger Muslims. Oh man, he's Muslim. He's cool, he's Muslim. I'm going to do what he does. And then another Muslim, and another Muslim, then another Muslim. And this is why if you read through Surah Al-A'raf, it talks about how the people, they're going to say the people that came before us led us here. He said, oh Allah, don't punish us. They told us, they did this, and we followed them. And Allah is going to say to both of them that both of you will be punished. Both of you will be multiplied in the punishment. So in that case, that's different. Meaning, if you did some evil, people followed you in that evil and you passed away, and they continue to do that evil, and they teach that evil to their kids. Just imagine, just imagine, look at the negativity that comes from that. You're a Muslim rapper, you think it's okay, you talk about whatever you want to talk about, get high, popping pills, whatever you do, right? You die. Everyone prays your janazah, and in this city, they're going to ride through the city bumping your music in their cars. And some other young person is going to listen, they're going to go out and buy your record. The next one going to buy your stuff, and everyone's going to keep buying your stuff. And you're on the ground dead. And everyone's buying, then their kids going to, and then 20 years later, they're still listening to your music. 30 years later, 50 years later, 60 years later, your music is still getting played. All the things that you said that you knew were wrong. You got videos, naked women next to you. Huh? Gonna keep playing. Still YouTube. Still there. So that's something to think about. Nasallahu salam wa afiyah. We have brothers that ended that. May Allah make it easy for them to make tawbah and leave that off. And turn away from that. But at the end of the day, that's the job of the shaitan, to lead you down that path. It's okay, you need to make money. Or, one of the deceptions of the shaitan, you're only doing it for a little while. Only for a little while. Let me just do a little, I'm just trying to buy a house real quick. You're just trying it for 20 years. Huh? It's a reminder, life is real. Especially we just finished the book of Janaa'iz. There's no coming back. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends the angel of death, that's it. I spoke to a brother. He told me one day he wasn't feeling well. He said, I went to the hospital. He was feeling shortness of breath and stuff like that. So he said he went to the hospital. Pay attention. He said, I went to the hospital. And next thing you know, I woke up 28 days later. I fell into a coma. He said, when I woke up, I thought I was asleep for like 4 hours. Realized I was in here for 28 days with a coma, in a coma for 28 days. Life is not promised to any of us. Nobody knows when their time is up. But this here, we can't play with this. And sometimes Shaitan's job is to keep us busy. Busy you with this, busy you with that. Make you believe we got forever. Oh, we got, do it tomorrow, do it tomorrow. Put it off to tomorrow. Any event, we're going to stop with that, inshallah. Any questions, Ikhwan?
Yeah, I got a question.
No, fuck.
On that, on comment on that. How can I put this? How can we ease the tension off of somebody, I guess you can say, that is quote unquote scared to talk about death or don't want to hear about it right now?
Are they Muslim?
That's too much for them.
Are they Muslim?
Muslim and non-Muslim.
A non-Muslim, the conversation should be get them to understand who Allah is. Taking Shahada. I mean, this is not like a black and white answer. I mean, I guess it would depend on the person, right? Depending on the person. Obviously, you want to mention to them about Tawheed and the remembrance of Allah. This is for the non-Muslim. For the Muslim, it depends on their condition, right? If it's a Muslim, they go to the masjid, they pray 5 times a day. Obviously, you're going to deal with them a little bit differently than a person that's barely holding on to Islam, right? The conversation is going to be different, right? So it really depends. But in general, what I would say, and Allah knows best, is just to remind them to remembrance of Allah. Remember Allah. Remember why they're here. Who created them? Who's going to take their soul? Visit the graves. I used to take my daughter when she was like 7 years old. We would walk to the cemetery in Mecca. Look, this is going to be our resting place someday. Like, these are things that the Salaf would do. They would take their children, visit the graves, look at them. We're going to be here someday. Let's get it right. Maybe you could just maybe take them past the cemetery. Talk to them about it. It's something that we can't escape. We can't escape it. As somebody mentioned to me the other day, it's called adulting. Adulting. Let's talk about it. We can't run away from that.
You also gotta look at the people who try to talk to them and you just don't go nowhere.
Nobody wants to die. Nobody's going to stand up and volunteer for death.
Right. Hey, yo, my cousin, I used to always try to talk to him. My cousin was talking to somebody. General conversation, talking to him. My cousin had a heart attack, talking to somebody. He died Saturday.
SubhanAllah.
You know what I'm saying? And the whole thing about it, you worried about the death, and I'm telling them, like, it's more severe than that. Like, he died upon a cuff. You know what I'm saying? You know. Only one that understood it was my grandma. Y'all question what God already had written for him. You know what I'm saying?
Allah understand. So with that, inshallah, this is our last class for Janaa'iz, and I think the next class we're going to start up, we're still going to use the same book, but the next book in here, this is because a lot of requests came for it. We're going to start on Kitab al-Nikah, the book of marriage, after this, inshallah. However, I'm not sure if we're going to start it next Monday or the following Monday after that. Even next Sunday, we're going to keep you posted, inshallah. But the next class we'll start, inshallah, is Kitab al-Nikah.
It's going to be after Isha instead of Maghrib, right?
Yeah, after Isha, inshallah. خلاص سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك